Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow Room Annex, and they are reviews of books. Some of you keep asking, what is this blue thing here? This is the edition of the complete Richard Strauss operas, in case you're curious. Upstairs is its companion, the red volumes of the complete orchestral works, and instrumental pieces and other things. But they were available at a very, very decent price, so I snagged them while I could. God knows what they would cost today. Anyway, we're looking at some books that I just grab out of here at random, and we're going to begin with some actually fascinating historical oldie stuff. Books on violin technique. I got interested in violin technique because I knew that the period instrument people were totally wrong in what they were saying about vibrato. I mean, it was total unspeakable wrongness. And I was determined to see what the reality was. And so I started reading all kinds of old violin treatises and things like that of a type that were seldom mentioned in the critical literature. And when they were often misquoted or mentioned selectively, and it was really a very interesting study. Anyway, it confirmed what I'd always thought, which is what those people are just full of crap when it comes to what they were saying about vibrato and violin playing most of the time. Anyway, the first pile of books, it's a little series of 3 books. Really, really delicious, by W.C. Honeyman, sometime not even acknowledged by name. W.C. Honeyman was an Edinburghian, an Irish violin pedagogue and writer who had a very, very extraordinary life. He, along with Conan Doyle, or before Conan Doyle, was one of the first inventors of the detective story. He wrote fabulous short stories about detective running around Edinburgh solving crimes. I've read them. They're marvelous. We'll come across them here. They're in here somewhere. I know that. But he also wrote violin treatises, and they're quite eccentric. He had something like 10 sons who all died. His daughter survived and became a violinist and a violin instructor at the Royal Academy, I believe. And so she was around a little bit later in the 1910s and 20s and 30s. He was writing in the 1870s and 80s. And it was very interesting for what he said about vibrato and other stuff like that. Fascinating. So this is this little dark book falling apart. It's quite wonderful. The Violin, How to Master It by a Professional Player, as yet unnamed, 16th edition. This was billed as the most accurate and effective, as well as least expensive violin treatise ever. But I mean, listen to what he says. You can see what a fanatic he was. He lived in a house called Villa Cremona. And he wrote some of his detective novels are about Stradivarius violins and things. It's unbelievable. No instrument has ever been or ever will be, I suspect, invented capable of even approaching the violin in extraordinary power and variety of expression. Its vocal singing, its smooth sliding, the impassioned power of a sweep from one end of the string to the other, its weird tremolo, that's vibrato, by the way, its pensivo and velvety legato, its clear bird-like harmonics, its pearly staccato bow, its wailing chords, the mellow vox humana of its bass string, the flute-like sweetness of its third, and the ringing brilliance of its upper register can scarcely be excelled even by the human voice. Pah! Yes, all other instruments give but a clumsy imitation. This all but outrivals the thing imitated. So, yeah, I mean, he was a serious violin guy. So this is his book on how to master the violin. Then he wrote a lovely little historical booklet, a little pamphlet, published by the Hardy Press in Scotland, called Strathspey Players, Past and Present, about Scottish folk music, folk violin playing. And it's, kind of interesting bunch of little stories about some legendary Scottish violinists. And then we've got the violin, how to choose one. Yes, when you go to your violin store. And it's very, very interesting because, this is in the 1870s and 80s. The price was 1 shilling, by the way. And for this book, this is the third edition. That was the 16th edition of that first book I showed you. And really, really kind of amazing. He talks about, basically how to build your own violin, how to choose it, take it apart, reassemble it. Those were the days. And then Scottish violin makers, past and present. And here is W.C. Honeyman himself. Really a fascinating character. I actually wrote a paper about him, a scholarly paper that was published in a peer-reviewed journal in Australia. And it was really, really, he was a fascinating character. Anyway, so there's that book. Then we have Modern Violin Playing. This is Grimson and Forsyth, Samuel B. Grimson and Cecil Forsyth. You may know Cecil Forsyth. He shows up periodically on Hyperion. He wrote a lovely viola concerto. He was a composer and a pedagogue. He wrote a famous book on orchestration. He talks about vibrato extensively and violin technique. This is in 1920. This is 1920, back in the days when supposedly, permanent vibrato, according to Roger Norrington, did not exist. However, tell this to these people, because they talk about, let's see what they talk about here. It's rather interesting. Left-hand violin theory. There are three essentials in violin playing, so far as the left hand in the first position is concerned. 1, a telling vibrato, which will not hamper the finger action. And then they go on and on and on and on about how to do a correct vibrato because you need to do it all the time. And it's like really amazing and all this stuff. It's really fascinating. And how there were some violinists in the 19th century who played with little or no vibrato at all. But most of them did. I mean, that was the point, Anyway, so there's this book, which was quite instructive and doesn't get quoted by the period instrument people terribly much. And then we have, this was just kind of like, a laugh a minute. The Inner Voice, The Making of a Singer by René Fleming. It's a rather light book, just shall we say. It's light reading, light, fluffy reading. It's 200 pages. Does it get up to 200? Yeah, it gets up to 200 pages. And it's, all about me. I haven't reread it. Let's put it that way. But I like to get these things because, every so often you get some fun little details or some, juicy bits of dirt. Fleming is quite judicious. She's actually a very nice person. And so she's not out to get anybody. Damn it. But hope springs eternal. Maybe the sequel. Who knows? Anyway, so that's this little batch of books from the Overflow Room Annex. I know it's not as thrilling as the monster biographies of major composers, but for me, René Fleming aside, who's interested in the historical aspect of it and doing some actual research into, literature of the period, whatever period we're talking about, it was really fascinating. And that's why these are the things that I value, these small little obscure nuggets from strange parts of the world. Anyway, keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.